This is the first in a series of short presentations on syntax. In the study of language, you will define syntax and grammar almost identically. They are both the analysis of the structure of phrases and sentences. Most linguists' definition of grammar is different from their definition of syntax. A grammar contains, for a linguist, the words and the rules of a language. A grammar includes a list of the words and a set of rules for grouping those words into phrases. Syntax, on the other hand, refers to the study of these rules and of sentence structure in general. It isn't concerned as much with morphology as it is with the ways in which words can be combined together to form phrases and sentences. Syntax addresses questions like, why is it okay in English to say, "Who did you see Mary with?" but not okay to say, "Who did you see Mary and?" Note that the asterisk in front of an expression indicates that it is ungrammatical. So when you see, "Who did you see Mary and?" with an asterisk, this isn't a typo, it's an example of an ungrammatical sentence. Ungrammatical structures teach us a lot about syntax. Now just a quick reminder on prescriptive and descriptive approaches. We often think of grammar as being a set of rules for proper use of language. These rules tell us what we should do, and they prescribe our linguistic behavior. And we mentioned earlier two such rules: do not split infinitives and do not end the sentence with a preposition. Descriptive approaches, on the other hand, involve looking at not how the language should be used, but how it is in fact used. And this is the kind of approach taken by linguists. On the other hand, when we say that we are interested in what speakers do, we don't mean that we're interested in all of the ums and uhs and Freudian slips and spoonerisms and all those little verbal hiccups that make oral speech interesting. We're interested in syntax in what they intended to say, not what they actually said. And this is the distinction between competence and performance. Competence refers to the subconscious, implicit, intuitive, and often unexplored knowledge native speakers have of the grammar of their native language. Not the rules of the language learnt in school, explicitly, but the implicit understanding. They know certain things to be correct and are able to do certain things and reject other things. A native speaker of English would know, "She isn't here, isn't she?" is incorrect, even if they can't explain why. Note that the structure "she isn't here, isn't she?" very similar structures do exist in other languages, just not in English. Performance, on the other hand, refers to the realization of that competence in speech and writing, or writing, which may include slips of the tongue, errors, typos, misunderstandings, garbled explanations. A speaker may say, "She isn't here, isn't she?" Even though he or she knows the sentence should be, "She isn't here, is she?" Saying "she isn't here, isn't she?" is an example of the speaker's performance. The underlying knowledge that the sentence should be "she isn't here, is she?" represents the speaker's competence. When we study syntax, we're studying competence, not performance. We want to know what it is that a fluent or native speaker of the language knows, not what this individual or that one does with the language at any particular time. Chomsky gave a name to that knowledge that a speaker has that they may not know they have, that competence. He called it the I language, and that was the internalized linguistic system that was represented by the speaker's competence. So the I language is that version of the language that that individual speaker has. Just a side note, many critical linguists find the term native speaker highly problematic. Just what is a native speaker? No one's born speaking a language. How young do you have to have been exposed to a language to be considered a native speaker of it? Despite these concerns, for the study of syntax, the intuitions of native speakers are often asked for. One of the ways that linguists study syntax is to ask native speakers of the language about the correctness of sentences. These native speaker intuitions indirectly lead us to an understanding of that native speaker's I language, their competence. Here is a grammaticality judgment test for you. Listen to these sentences, one at a time, and tell me whether you think they are grammatical, ungrammatical, or you are unsure. Please give her the cup. Please give to her the cup. Please give the cup to her. And please give the cup her. You may have found some of those easier to make a decision about than others. So that's an example of a grammaticality judgment test, or one item in a grammaticality judgment test. And that is one of the ways in which linguists studying syntax can tap into native speaker intuitions. Native speaker intuitions are also give us insight into how expressions are interpreted. For example, a native speaker of English would recognize the ambiguity of the sentence, "Sam loves you more than Jim." This is an example sentence from Radford. So Sam loves you more than Jim. The sentence has two interpretations. Which of the interpretations of Sam loves you more than Jim do you think is most viable? Sam loves you more than Jim loves you, or Sam loves you more than Sam loves Jim? So asking for interpretations is another way that a linguist studying syntax can tap into native speaker intuitions. One of the goals of the study of syntax is to develop a theory of grammar that can describe any natural language. Not simply a grammar for each language, but a theory of grammar that is just as useful in describing Japanese as it is in describing English. Radford writes, "A theory of grammar must enable us to devise descriptively adequate grammar for every natural language. In other words, our ultimate goal is to develop a theory of universal grammar."